Let's talk about Thomas Crooks and about things that aren't related to ranch dressing and dips with George Webb. George, how are you?
Great, Mike. It's well, we could talk about the pipe bomb at the DNC, I guess. That's a perfect lead-in.
You mean the pipe bomb that didn't exist?
Right. And, when you have a groomer in Pittsburgh, Urick, who's encouraging people to go to Washington, D.C. and do pipe bombing, and one of his mentees, one of his groomees, is a guy who's had 700 messages to learn how to build pipe bombs since 2019. There's no way the FBI should ever consider if Crooks ever was encouraged to go to January 6th to put a pipe bomb there. No way. We got to rule that out right off the bat. We could rule out all the Antifa guys right off the bat.
Are you surprised by the announcement yesterday or whatever it was? Well, you knew about the Higgins report, and you knew about that the Clay Higgins report. You knew what's not contained. There's nothing in there about the white van, nothing about the explosives, nothing about the van being carted off. Higgins did discover that Crooks' body was cremated, but you weren't surprised, and I think you already knew about the fact that a local yokel, a SWAT guy, had actually supposedly fired the first shot that hit Crooks and shattered the stock of his weapon, right?
Right. But, we have visual evidence, okay, of the pop-up cop, not to avoid your question, but, the pop-up cop, the guy who jumps up, 30 seconds before Trump gets shot, right? We've got a guy walking out in a blue shirt and long white shorts, right? And he's a part of the SERT team, which is the State Emergency Response Team, right? And he's unknown to everybody there, but he walks out from under the bushes 30 seconds, right? Where the cop gets the Indian hoist, with the one cop gives the other guy a hoist to pop up, right? He walks right out of there. But we haven't questioned him. Later, I identified him as a guy who was a Kenan Hooper Antifa guy, look-alike, But who is this guy? He just says he's CERT team. Nobody knows who he is. And I say we got to start issuing subpoenas and asking who these people are, because nobody has shown him, and they've covered him up. And for instance, who shot him? That's another one where you're mentioning who shot the guy. Let's get these people in who abandoned their posts. We got 9% abandoned their posts. Let's get them in. This is what the Congress should be doing right now.
Well, and then you have, in part two, American Antifa, part two, you have a couple of counter sniper local yokels, I guess, hanging out by the vending machine eating popcorn, which is what I asked the question. I'm like, well, how do all three of them get dragged away from their post at the same time? How's that possible? Right. And you and I talked about that a little bit last week. Just to add a little humor to that, Weird Al Yankovic has a cover of Gangsters Paradise out. I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing. So is it called Assassin's Paradise?
It's Gangsters Paradise because this is a thing where you can get paid for 12 hours of watching a roof. I don't know why you would go there 8 hours in advance. The key time is 6:05 to 6:11, right? That's when the music stops and Trump takes the stage. But it's a Gangster's Paradise because you get paid for all those hours. And then you can have a shift change at 4:26 and send half the people home. And then you can all leave. The three snipers that are left on the team of six can leave at the critical time, and you still get paid. It's a Gangster's Paradise.
Okay, so a couple of things investigative journalist George Weather should have piqued your attention. I'm sure they did. Outside of the Crooks investigation, although I think that they're all related. How is it that our vaunted FBI that knows all of us or anyone that was involved in 010621, they have all my text messages, they have all your text messages, they know what's in our bank accounts, they know where we have traveled, they know where you have traveled, they accuse you of doing things, they accuse all manner of other Americans doing things. Why didn't they know anything about this wench that was working for Hateful Hochul, Satan's apostle? Where was the FBI when she was spending 6 years working for Cuomo and Hochul and was sending state secrets back to the Chi-Coms?
Well, we covered Fang with Eric Swalwell, and it just seems to be, remember Driving Miss Daisy, and Dianne Feinstein had the Chinese,
Yeah.
So it's just a never-ending way of leaking secrets to the Chinese so that we can get kickbacks into the DNC. It's an old it's an old ruse that seems to work, and everybody believes they're actually, embedded for 10 years. No, they're just agents that are taking DoD secrets and obsoleting them out, and then getting kickbacks to the DNC. And we covered that extensively when I was in Washington.
Now, remember back in his glory days, El Rushbo used to talk about the Chi-Coms, and Professor Winlin Ho, I think it was his name. Remember the guy that sold the plans to the nuclear bomb?
Sure, the anti-aircraft radar that Clinton had.
Right.
Again.
Right.
Right.
So we've had American Chinese expats basically here in the United States. Was it Winlow Park? Was his name? I want to say
something like that.
Selling American Defense Department and defense secrets, and now apparently just government secrets, and money laundering operations. I mean, I'm reading this story here about this wench, this Sun woman that was working for Hochul and for Cuomo. What does she do after they accuse her of misdeeds and they fire her? She goes to work and runs a guy who runs for Congress's campaign. Gee, I wonder where he got his money from.
Well, if you are a defense contractor and you leak, right, through a spy out to China, and you get a kickback into your campaign, guess what? Now you got to go back to the Hill. You got to write a new position paper about how our current system is obsolete and now how we need a new one. And so it's the way you can keep the military-industrial complex well fed.
Okay, I want to go back to your georgewebb.substack.com, folks. And,
okay.
This is our 10th week together, by the way.
Awesome. Well, it's just a fountain of AI artwork. It's just every day.
But let's see what the nuts and bolts here. How is it that you discovered that Crooks is getting 800 encrypted or 700 encrypted messages from NATO overseas operatives to teach him how to build the bomb? Now, first, let's set this up for the audience. The day of... Go ahead. You set it up.
Well, I would just say the FBI said 700 messages since 2019 bomb-making lessons. Okay. This is when Crooks starts as 15 years old. Right now, that's 2019. So this is his mentor who's encouraging people to go to January 6th and blow up January 6th, right?
Okay.
But somehow Crooks skipped school that day. He didn't hear his mentor tell people to go there. But my point is that you've got three different people using three different encrypted chat accounts, okay? And those could be three different Syrian and Ukrainian terrorists, potentially talking to him over 5 years, 700 messages, or it could be three people in the Dimmick family from the Butler area, they're from Beaver County actually, that all work for NATO, right? And they've identified this poor kid, right? And now they're coaxing him along and pretending, that he's the bad guy. So I asked the question, is it the three Dimmicks that are all from Beaver County that all work for NATO? One of the guy works for Joe Biden and writes the book on chemical, biological, radiological, guy named Dimmick, Matt Dimmick. Okay. Is it the Dimmicks? Is it the Dimmicks, or is it three terrorists overseas? That's the question I ask people.
Okay. Now we're going to run out of time here, but I'm going to extend this if you can hang.
Sure.
We'll just hop on it. We'll stay on X and we'll stay on YouTube. So, folks, when you hear the OutQ music, just ignore it. And you're going to want to go to Crusade Radio Network on X.com or on YouTube. I want to stick on the subject here. And as you mentioned, Crooks would have been 19 years old when he started with his bomb building skills. But let's go to the day of. Okay, first time that you and I, any of us, know anything about what is happening, what has happened, is July the 13th. At 6:11 p.m. is when the shots rang out. By 6:16 Eastern Standard Time, I am on air, and I'm covering it. You're making your plans to go to Butler, Pennsylvania, wherever you are. One of the things that we know here that now does not fit into the destruction or into the puzzle that they are constructing for us in the official narrative, as they call it, George. One of the things that doesn't fit is, okay, what vehicle had the bombs in them. And there's confusion about this. One set of people say, or one set of FBI guys says it's in the Hyundai Sonata. Another set says it's in the white van. Hold that thought quickly. Folks, this ends the radio show, and we're going to hop over to YouTube. Okay, so to that question, let's you and I just hop back in the Webb King Dude Wayback Machine.
Okay.
We'll take what was the kid's name from Bullwinkle? We'll take Sherman, and what was the little dog's name?
I don't remember.
Oh, what was the little dog? Mr. Peabody.
I do remember the Wayback Machine, though. Was he the genius guy? Was he the Einstein kind of character with the glasses? The
right.
little dog?
Yes, he was. The dog's name was Peabody. No, it was Mr. Peabody.
Yeah.
Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Okay. So Webb and I and Peabody and Sherman are going to hop in the. And by the way, the Wayback Machine was an acronym. You remember it was W.A.Y. I don't remember what
it really.
Yes,
oh, okay.
I don't remember what it stood for. Okay, let's hop into Wayback Machine to the first time you and I talk, which is July the 15th on Tuesday. You're already in Butler, Pennsylvania. The Saturday evening, the FBI, we get the conflicting reports. You have reported that the FBI says, well, there may be I'm hearing there's maybe a second gunman. This is going out on the radio. We know that the guy is leaving the sheet store, hears about the white van, and there's no reporting on the white van other than the Fox News story the next morning. The evening of July the 13th, Fox News and other outlets are reporting that there was a bomb, that Crooks had bombs. It's not clear, were they in the Sonata or were they in the van? He had detonators in his hands, and there's been no exploration, no attempt to get to the bottom of whatsoever. Well, how does a 23-year-old punk who has no military experience whatsoever become an arch sniper and a bomb builder? And I think that because the information that we were getting the night of, again, as they were reporting this in real time was, and it was believed that there were bombs that were set to go off as well. How did the FBI know all this?
Yeah.
On July the 13th.
Well, and that's why I say if you're grooming somebody, right, and then you want to, create a false flag, you're going to know because you've been grooming him for 5 years. He started as a 15-year-old, by the way. In 2019, he was only 15. So they've known, right, when he's 15. I put out another thing today, another little music video showing Crooks at his birthday parties, building bombs at his birthday parties, and you got to rip 5 birthday. The candles are actually sticks of dynamite, So, and he's got the little clock next to the candles, they're about ready to go off. And so you got 5 birthdays that you got to rip off the calendar before this ever happens, right? And so our FBI is supposed to be watching people from if these messages are from terrorists. They're supposed to be watching this, right? This is what we pay all the money for. And if they're coming from Syria, if they're coming from Ukraine, right? If they're coming from these countries, we should be intercepting these things. These are terrorist havens, right? Or let's say Egypt or wherever they're coming from. Well, they haven't told us when the accounts were created. They haven't told us anything about the messages. That would tell us a lot. If we had the 700 messages laid out, we'd see a lot of what went back and forth. Same thing with the money, the 3 international encrypted crypto accounts. We'd know a lot. If it was $50, then we'd say, well, that's probably Crooks. If it's $1.5 million, which has been reported, then we know, hey, Crooks has some state sponsorship here. That's $1.5 million. Well, that's a lot of money for a 15-year-old. So those are the questions we're asking still. And the bomb making is in Crooks's car, the Sonata, but also in the white van.
And okay, then we have the eyewitness statement here. It boggles my mind. Why didn't Clay Higgins go and interview that guy? What's her name? Sandra is it King or Kim, for Fox News, who was there that morning. She went and interviewed him on Sunday morning. Why didn't Clay Higgins go and interview the neighbor dude who said, no, we came home from the rally and there were all these cops that were surrounding this white van. They told us to stay away. We sat out here and we kept our distance, but we watched them. They sent the dogs into the van, the bomb-sniffing dogs. Then they sent the robot. Then the human guys went in. The next thing you know, the van's up on a tow truck and it's being hauled away. The guy says it had Arizona plates on it. He gave a very good description of it. Why is this? And he said there's about a dozen cop cars all around this. If this and apparently no one owned the van. No one showed up to claim that, hey man, that's my van, dude. I just kind of parked it there. Why isn't this part of the Higgins report? And why isn't this part of of any of the narratives that we're hearing?
I put the white van in Clay Higgins' office with my AI art just to make it like the white elephant, the elephant in the room that he missed. I also put the bloody receipt, and I made it about 50 times bigger, supposedly, for the ladder at Home Depot. But this bomb, we think that the bomb is a long black duffel bag. It looks like a very heavy, long duffel bag that you might take, like you may carry a sign for a trade show, like a really big, heavy, long, 6-foot-long black duffel bag that has the two kind of canvas handles. That's
I have
one of those.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have one.
But, you can carry up to 100 pounds, 150
sure.
pounds, with one of those things. A strong guy can do that. So we're watching and seeing a handoff potentially somewhere between 4:26 when Crooks is at the airport, right? And we've got this woman now who's saying she saw a guy dressed in black bloc. That's the signature for Antifa, looking like Uric, with the long, dark brown hair, and real skinny, right? And it's looking like there's a bomb handoff. And the Crooks has a detonator, so we have good reason to believe that Crooks was trying to detonate a bomb.
Yes.
Yeah. So, why not follow up on that lead? He's obviously pressing the detonator. Wouldn't you then think, hey, let's find the bomb that he's trying to blow up?
You would think.
I don't know. I didn't go to FBI Academy, but it just seems like, if somebody's hitting on a TV controller, where's the TV that you're trying to control? It's just kind of one of those obvious things. And so there had to be a bomb, right? And it turns out around 5:00 near the airport. Again, don't airports have cameras? We don't seem to have any cameras. But are they trying to place a bomb under the podium, under the auspices that it's some kind of speaker equipment or something? And that's the hot thing we're working on right now.
Okay, George Webb, investigative journalist. Follow him at georgewebb.substack.com. Before this morning, I had not seen the pop-up cop video of the SERT guy. Where do we get the video of the SERT guy, SERT guy, coming out of the bushes of the AGR building? Was he taking a leak? What was he doing?
I think he was making sure Crooks was on the roof.
Okay.
And if you, I don't know if he's using a ladder to see Crooks is on the roof, but if you go to my Substack where I have all these, georgewebb.substack.com, and you look at my latest one, it's part 6. Okay, yeah, and if you click on that, the big one in the middle, the big story in the middle where they've eliminated Crooks as a DNC bomber, even though they've done bomb-making lessons for him for a couple of years at that point.
Okay.
And if you go to the next video, which is, this reminded me when I asked who came out of the bushes when the pop-up cop jumped on the roof. And that's the video right there, if you want to play that.
Yeah, Maggie, you see which one he's talking about? It's the one. It's underneath the. It's the one. It's underneath the first graphic, right?
Yeah, it's the second graphic, basically.
It's 45 seconds long, and it's kind of a frame by frame of this guy just popping out of the bush. Now, when you see this, okay, there it is. So this is now whose body cam is this?
It's one of the Butler County guys. It's not the guy, obviously, that you see popping up. You have one guy who his body camera's off, and he's getting a hoist, from another cop,
right?
And those are Butler County guys, but the sound is off. Right? For some reason, when he pops up, you can't hear him talk. He says he sees Crooks up there. But we think the audio that's missing is, hey, Kennan, or some exchange between this guy in the blue shirt and the white shorts, and they don't want to out this SERT team. It's called the State Emergency Response Team. But you can see for yourself that, it looks like Kennan. And a little bit later, I'll show you the picture of Kennan later on that he shows up after the shooting, too.
Okay, so who's the guy that then pops into the picture that is in the flak jacket and the camo fatigues and then the Army guy helmet? Because he walks towards the leaker, the sneaky leaker dude. Let's call that guy the sneaky leaker.
Okay. Well, sneaky leaker, yeah, you might have just been taking a whiz, right? But Beaver County is the guys. Beaver County SWAT is the guy who comes. But there, you'll see the two cops as well, two Butler County cops, but you also see the Beaver County SWAT guy in the video.
I'm so blown away by this. Again, a guy named George. I really think you should do a spot on this. I really do, because you're a film guy, a film buff like me. You might know the film. Mike Figgis made a movie in 2002 called Time Code. Mm-hmm. And he had 12, 15 actors and 4 different cameras. And it was a live shot film, and they basically took the 4 different camera angles and they synced them up with one time code, because they're all running on a central time code. And I don't even remember the story, but in certain places the 12 actors interact and they cross into each other's camera fields. Why hasn't someone put together a timeline of all the available body cam feeds, put it on one ginormous screen, project it up there, if it's 64 frames or 64 shots or whatever it is, and you can do this, sync them all up by time code, and then you can get a view of every piece of available video that's available, and you'll know exactly who was where. From what we know now, you know exactly who was where and what they were doing at what exact time. I think that this would just, if this was all assembled together, and this would just blow the case wide open, because we go like, you might, for example, find out whether or not those 3 guys assigned to that roof did leave their post to go get some popcorn.
Yeah. Well, it could be. We actually worked with somebody who did that sort of time coding with a quad split screen for the January 6th documentary. And we showed that in Albion, Michigan on a big screen, and it's amazing when you put it up on a big 60-foot screen how much more detail you see. We'll probably do the same thing for this. I have seen a few time-coded pieces out there for the Crooks assassination, and calling all filmmakers. This is probably the most important thing you could be working on. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think it is, and to his credit, Oliver Stone is a great filmmaker, and to his credit, and I think he's a great American sometimes too. Oliver Stone is interested in stuff like that. This is something that Stone would do. Somebody like Oliver Stone has to be sitting there going like, no effing way, no way, this ain't happening again, and they're not getting away with it. Because Stone was at least partly responsible. He was banging on Bill Clinton's door in 1995 and 1996 until Clinton finally relented and opened that library up, in a library that's attached to the Library of Congress with all the Kennedy files. That was primarily Oliver Stone's doing. Yeah,
I think the huge popularity of JFK caused that. It's still Oliver Stone's times 20 over anything else he's done, and they've created a huge public outcry. And I think the same thing is happening here, where people are trying to race to tell the story, the deep state with the lone shooter narrative, and then the people who are evidence based. So it's going to be a shootout at the OK Corral on the narrative shootout here.
Okay, so there's a couple of other things that you have broken stories about here that no one else seems to want to talk about. And I think that, when you and I talked on July the 15th, our first interview, and it's been 10 weeks since then, when you and I, or 8 or 9 weeks, when you and I talked for the first time, the thing that you said, I said, George, why are you going to Butler, Pennsylvania? And then the second time, and you said, because we need to investigate this. Second time I talked to you, and I asked you, so what have you discovered? Whoever did this is still out there, and we need to find them because President Trump's life is in danger. You still believe that?
They sure do. Look at the guy who just climbed the place in Jonestown, not only 30 or 40 miles away. Again, an Antifa-looking operative. They didn't release his name. Again, you go to one side of a stage when you're trying to draw people away from their posts so that you can place a bomb on the other side of the stage. I believe that was a bombing attempt that was thwarted because there was people in the crowd who pulled him down, which pulled the guy down. And therefore, it's the same thing always. It's sort of a torpedo-shaped bomb, so it doesn't look like your standard, cartoon bomb with Natasha and Boris, with the big, with the fuse. They're not going to do that. They're going to make it look like some kind of stage equipment, like some kind of speaker column or something. It's going to be some kind of audio-visual equipment or something like that, under the guise of being a music grunt, a music key grip or a video guy. And that's what we really got to watch for. I think there wasn't an attempt. And why did they withhold the name of the guy? If you charge the stage, you put your name out there. Why didn't they shoot him? Right? Why didn't they only tased him? I don't know. After the first assassination attempt, how long do you want to wait on these new ones?
I agree. Now, at the end of part 6 of the of Thomas Cook's Antifa guy, who is this Kennan guy?
He's an Antifa operative, along with this guy named Urich,
okay,
who have done things like organized violent attacks against Trump supporters. So, for instance, they beat a woman for wearing a MAGA hat on the street in Chicago on Wacker Boulevard in broad daylight. They organized 500 people to attack in Trump supporters coming down an escalator, mostly women, as they were coming down an escalator to Pittsburgh Convention Center. They organized 500 people in Seattle to do attacks, Unite the Right in Washington, D.C., near the Executive Office building attacks. They broke a whole bunch of 200 shops' windows in Los Angeles over and over again in every major city in the country. 8 years of crime and violence specifically against Trump folks. So, here's violence against Trump. Why wouldn't you look at the guys who live right there in the city, who have contacts with Crooks? So this is the question we're asking the FBI.
Well, and then I would just add, and I add this from memory, and from the 2008, Stanley Kurtz was doing all the investigative reporting. I don't know if you know Stanley. Stanley Kurtz was writing for the National Review. He's the only guy that was looking into Obama's real past. And it was Stanley Kurtz that finally revealed that Obama was the protege of William Ayers, and that Bill Ayers, you know who Bill Ayers was? Bill Ayers was the husband of Bernardine Dorn. Bernardine Dorn was, and so was Ayers, was one of the founding members of the Weather Underground, the Students for a Democratic America, the SDA, the SDS. These people were responsible for bombing all manner of places. They planted a bomb in the FBI building in 1978. They had a bomb in City Hall in San Francisco. They were going to blow up the Brinks building, but the bomb blew up on one of those idiots in Manhattan before they could actually plan it. Bernardine Dorn and, what was the other woman's name? They killed someone. They were sentenced to, they were actually put behind bars. This, to me, seems like this Antifa, this is just a continuation of the radical nutbag groups from the 1960s, the Weather Underground, the Students for a Democratic Society, and all the rest of them. This is just a manifestation of the same routine all over again. And you know who doesn't do a damn thing about it? The FBI and the federal authorities.
Well, and they're the key beneficiaries. The Joint Terrorism Task Force that was created in the mid-'90s came out of this sort of, false flagging. I'll create a need. I'll make the crime. If there isn't the crime, I'll make it, and then I'll get what I want. I'll get my Joint Terrorism Task Force. And JTTF allows you to go in and infiltrate all the local police in major cities, in 85 different major cities, as well as the state police in 50 major capitals.
That's right.
So I basically create one big fusion center, which is, Doug Valentine writes about the Phoenix Project. This is the Phoenix Project in America. It just got imported into America with this Joint Terrorism Task Force.
And you know what else, and I don't know if you know this, but and listeners out there, I don't know if you know this, you know what else they used the JTTF for back in the mid-2000s, at the end of the Bush and throughout at least the first term of Obama?
Again, well, I'm all ears.
DUI. The JTTF went into places like they came here to Louisiana and made a deal with Louisiana State Police or made a deal with the local sheriff here, who was the sheriff of St. Tammany Parish. The JTTF was funding the DUI stings and the rolling checkpoints, which are patently unconstitutional. And some people did ultimately beat the charges because, like, dude, you can't just show up in the middle of the road without cause and pull people over. But the JTTF was funding these operations here. I think that they were basically just funneling money to the local police organizations where they had operatives and needed to funnel the money to. It was just a black op.
Yeah, these are self-funding mechanisms. The self-licking ice cream cone, a lot of people call it. Is if we can't have some crime so that we get some budgets, we'll make it. And you see this over and over again in the career of Andy McCabe, where he goes in and destroys evidence, and then you do enough evidence destruction from like Timothy McVeigh and the 93 bombing of the World Trade Center. Hey, pretty soon you're going to be the director of the FBI. You get rewarded for that sort of thing at the FBI.
Let me ask you a final question here as we continue. Well, two questions. Where are you investigating at today? Can you disclose your secret location?
Yeah, we're looking heavy into Los Angeles right now. Peter Strzok is coming to Los Angeles, and he has got a big CIA checkbook in his back pocket. They're trying to make this movie called War Game. It came out, they were shopping it at Sundance in Park City in January, and then it went to limited distribution in Los Angeles, and it hasn't come to Los Angeles yet, but in New York and Chicago, and then Montana, because the Democratic governor plays the president. It's one of these war room, situation, war gaming thing like Event 201,
Okay.
Only this is for January 6th, only it's going to be worse. It's January 7th. This is where you bring the Ukrainian snipers in and they shoot all the Trump people.
Wow.
And that's what they're making, War Game, and no one wants to touch it because it's right after the Trump assassination. It's like, hey, wait a minute, aren't you kind of painting all these people that are victims, who just got shot? Aren't you painting them as the bad guys again? And Strzok is trying to write checks to Showtime or Netflix to get this thing picked up on video on demand. And that's what we're doing. We're following Peter Strzok. He's in the movie, by the way. Strzok's in the movie. Wesley Clark, former head of NATO, he's in the movie. This is total CIA. It's all CIA guys making this thing in this little room, and they've got 6 hours to stop the bad Trump people. And we're just following Strzok around and seeing where he writes checks.
Wesley Clark. It's if you see the movie Ungentlemanly War Conduct or whatever with Henry Cavill, it's the story of how Ian Fleming saw the British Special Ops Force at work and trying to stop the Nazi food supply in North Atlantic, came up with the idea for James Bond. But what they don't tell you is that, maybe that's where he got the idea, but people don't know this. I know you know it because you're the one that told me that Ian Fleming was funded by MI6 or MI5 and the CIA. They told Ian Fleming, we want you to make this spy guy up, and we want him to be the good guy.
Yeah, very much so. If you read a man called Intrepid that William Stevenson wrote about himself, they were in the Rockefeller Building in New York during World War II. I mean, they ran MI6 operations out of the Rockefeller Building, many decades after World War II. So, yeah, the whole James Bond is make us the good guys.
Okay, final question. This really is the final one. Do you, back in the day, did you do any, or after the fact, did you do any investigation into, or were you involved in investigating what happened to Governor Rod Blagojevich in 2009 after Obama set him up to because the rumor was that after Obama was elected and his Senate seat had to be filled, which fell to the governor, who was Blagojevich at the time, the rumor was, or maybe it was a fact, that Blagojevich was then talking to the Reverend Jackson about filling the seat, and Obamas were like, no way, I get to pick who it is that replaces me, and they sent in the FBI guy that took him out was Patrick Fitzgerald. This guy is a career FBI criminal, and he did a hit job on Blagojevich. And when Mrs. Blagojevich finally got to meet with President Trump, she told him that, and of course Trump pardoned Governor Blagojevich. Did you do any reporting on that?
Yeah, Jesse Jackson's son, if you remember, was put forward by Jesse Jackson, and he also went to prison. And it's
That's
sort of
right.
like, yeah. If you don't do what we want you to do, you're going to pay for it. That's how JTTF runs the show. It's not just FBI. I want to say that there's a foreign influence here. The Atlantic Council with NATO. That's how they use that's where they bring in the operatives, right, to run these operations, so that we don't know anything about it. It's called the liaison loophole. You can look at that liaison loophole. You can bring in operatives from overseas to run these false flag operations. So, yeah, that was one where I met Jesse in Washington and had a nice little conversation with him, and yes, he was set up big time.
Yeah.
People also forget that Donald Trump gave free rent to Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition in his building. That just slips their mind when they're calling everybody a racist.
And no, I did know that, and I did know that Jackson's son that he got involved in it, and that he went to jail too. And look. After that, the Reverend Jackson was nowhere to be seen. This guy is running the Push Coalition, the Rainbow Coalition, and Push activism. He's been very, very successful in blackmailing major corporations for 3 decades for all sorts of hush money, or he's going to call him a racist. So, he goes to the Fortune 500 and says, "Well, I will make you a proposition," and then he gets involved in a replacement of Obama, and the dude is never seen again. Literally, the Reverend Jackson is a figment of the past. And he's the most important civil rights activist after Martin Luther King, no doubt, is the Reverend Jackson. There is no doubt. He runs for president in 84 and 88, right? He is the most important figure in civil rights after Martin Luther King Jr., and Obama, a black man, takes him out.
Yep, and if you're on the balcony in Memphis and you point to where the lone gunman is and you say it's a lone gunman, it's no question how far you'll go in politics. You'll go a long way as long as you say lone gunman. So there you go.
There you go. All right, He is George Webb, investigative journalist. You can find him at georgewebb.substack.com. George, keep up the great reporting. As always, we promote your work pretty much every day. And I don't know. I hope I don't talk to you later this week, because if I do, that means something terrible has happened, or something fantastic. Yeah. So maybe I should hope that I talk to you. But if not,
well, I'll keep you posted for sure.
Okay. If not, then we'll do week 11 next week. All right, brother. God bless you. Stay safe.